The silence before the storm. The galaxy had always thought of humans as fragile. Their worlds were young, their fleets small, and their reach short compared to the empires that had stretched across the stars for thousands of years. When a sudden attack struck Earth's colonies, the Council of Alien Rulers expected to see despair. They believed humans would cry, plead, and surrender to the cold weight of galactic dominance. Instead, something far different began to take shape. The first strike was brutal. One of Earth's outposts, a growing settlement on the edge of human space, was wiped out overnight. Millions gone in a blaze of fire, their signals silenced in seconds. Neighboring worlds watched in shock. The alien alliance that carried out the attack sent a message to Earth: kneel, and you may live. Resist, and you will be erased. Across the stars, many believed humanity would collapse under fear. But they had forgotten what it meant to test a species born on a world of storms. Earthquakes, predators, an endless struggle. Humanity did not collapse. Instead, the silence that followed was not of surrender, but of preparation. In the heart of Earth's capital, war councils formed in hidden chambers. Generals, admirals, and scientists gathered around glowing holotables, their faces grim but unbroken. They spoke in short, firm voices. There were no tears. There were no pleas. There was only resolve. For every colony burned, for every city erased, humanity would strike back with fire tenfold. Whispers spread among the outer colonies. Ordinary men and women, miners, traders, farmers, and engineers, all felt the same rising flame in their hearts. They remembered humanity's long history of wars fought against overwhelming odds. From ancient battles with swords to world wars with machines, humans had always risen from ashes stronger than before. This time would be no different. The alien rulers watched from afar. Some laughed at the thought of warrior apes raising weapons against fleets older than Earth's entire civilization. They called humanity reckless, foolish, a doomed species chasing glory before extinction. But in their arrogance, they had failed to understand something crucial. Humans did not fight only to win. They fought because surrender was worse than death. In deep space, hidden hangars came alive. Massive shipyards glowed as sparks rained from steel frames. Battleships, sleek and sharp like blades, were forged at a pace never seen before. Engineers worked day and night, their hands blistered, their eyes bloodshot, refusing to rest until every ship could stand ready. Factories shifted from civilian goods to weapons of war. Carriers, frigates, destroyers, all rolled out one after another, painted with the emblem of Earth. But war was not only about ships and guns. On training fields, men and women volunteered in numbers too vast to count. Some were veterans, others had never held a weapon before. It did not matter. They trained, they learned, and above all, they prepared to defend not just Earth, but the very idea of humanity. In the darkness of space, scouts reported strange movements. Alien fleets shifted uneasily, unsure of how humans would respond. Their leaders grew impatient, mocking Earth's silence. They expected cries of surrender at any moment. But the silence dragged on. And then, one night, the silence broke. A single human fleet appeared at the edge of enemy territory. Their ships gleamed in the void, carrying scars of hastily built armor, but radiating a cold determination. No message of surrender was sent. Instead, a single broadcast echoed across the galaxy. A voice, steady and unshaken, spoke only 7 words. You wanted war. Now you shall have it. The galaxy trembled. For the first time in centuries, an empire's arrogance was met not with submission, but with defiance. Humanity had chosen its path, and it was a path drenched in fire. Every alien ruler who had laughed now felt a shadow fall across their empires. They had expected humans to weep. They had expected humans to beg for mercy. But the humans had remembered who they were: children of a death world, survivors of endless trials. And when survivors were cornered, they did not break. They fought. The storm was coming. Humanity would not bow. Humanity would answer with war. Asterisk. The first strike, the human fleet's sudden broadcast, echoed like thunder across the galaxy. Alien. Commanders dismissed it at first as empty defiance. They believed the apes of Earth had no true strength, only pride. But as the hours turned into days, that pride began to show its teeth. The first human offensive came without warning. A mining outpost owned by the Alien Alliance, hidden deep within an asteroid field, was thought to be untouchable. It supplied rare metals to fuel their warships. For centuries, no enemy had dared approach it. Yet one night, human ships slipped silently through the rocks, their engines whispering like predators in the hunt. The defenders spotted them too late. Beams of searing light cut through the dark, tearing apart the station's defenses. Explosions rippled across the outpost, sending burning fragments spinning into the void. Workers screamed into their combs, but no help came. Within hours, the outpost was gone, turned into a graveyard of shattered metal. News of the attack raced across the Empire. Shock spread among its leaders. They had expected humans to hide, to guard their homeworlds and wait for mercy. Instead, humans had carried war directly into the Empire's heart. In Earth's command chambers, the admirals watched the reports with cold eyes. They did not cheer. They did not boast. They knew this was only the beginning. For every strike they made, retaliation would come swift and brutal. But they also knew something the aliens had forgotten. War was not won by fear. It was won by resolve. Families gathered around screens to watch the fleet's movements. Miners and farmers whispered prayers for victory. Children traced pictures of warships in their notebooks, dreaming of the day they could serve. Volunteers filled transports daily, streaming toward training camps. Humanity was no longer a collection of worlds. It had become a single war machine. Meanwhile, the alien empire seethed with fury. The ruling council met in towering palaces of glass and steel, their voices raised in anger. "Crush them," one shouted. "Erase their fleets before their madness spreads." Another sneered. "They are reckless, nothing more. Their fire will burn out quickly." But there were some voices, quieter, cautious, that spoke of unease. They had studied humans before. They remembered Earth's history, the countless wars humans had fought among themselves. And they warned, a species that survives endless conflict does not fear it. They thrive in it. Their warnings were drowned by the roars of arrogance. The Empire launched its response swiftly. Massive fleets, larger than anything humanity could field, surged toward the border. They carried weapons that had broken entire civilizations. There, commanders laughed as they plotted routes straight into human space. But humans were ready. At the edge of a desolate star system, the two forces met. The aliens entered confident, their ships blazing with power. But as they advanced, they found themselves surrounded. Human destroyers, smaller and faster, darted like wolves among them. Missiles streaked through the blackness, slamming into cruisers. Torpedoes ripped open hulls, spilling fire into the void. The aliens fought back with overwhelming strength. Their beams sliced through human ships, tearing apart frigates and scattering debris. But every time a ship fell, two more surged forward. The humans fought not with the calm precision of a cold empire, but with raw fury. Their ships bled, but they did not retreat. In the command center of the human flagship, the admiral's voice was steady. "Hold the line," he said. "Make them bleed for every inch." And they did. Hours turned into days of battle, wreckage, floating like broken stars across the void. When at last the alien fleet limped away, They had not crushed humanity. They had only tasted its fury. For the first time in centuries, the Empire had been wounded. Not by a rival power, not by a rebellion, but by a species they had thought weak, and the galaxy was watching. Merchants whispered of human courage in shadowed markets. Smugglers carried tales of burning warships across distant worlds. On neutral planets, crowds gathered in taverns to hear every rumor. Some laughed at the humans' defiance. Others felt something colder, something heavier fear, because deep inside, they all realized the same truth. The Empire had expected humans to kneel. Instead, they had made war into a promise dot, and humanity always kept its promises. Asterisk fire across. The stars, the Empire's retreat, sent shockwaves rippling across the galaxy. Empires that once mocked humanity now paused in uneasy silence. No one had expected the first clash to end in anything less than total annihilation of the Terrans. Yet there it was, wreckage of the mighty alien fleet drifting in human space. Proof that Earth had stood its ground. But the humans did not stop there. Within weeks, new campaigns unfolded. Human fleets struck at supply convoys, raided hidden fuel depots, and dismantled communication hubs. They fought like hunters, striking fast, vanishing into the void, leaving chaos behind. Whole sectors that once pulsed with alien strength were left crippled, their defenses shattered. The Empire reeled. Its admirals raged, calling humans undisciplined, reckless, and suicidal. Yet for every plan they made, the humans found a way to twist it into a trap. Their strategies did not follow the neat patterns of galactic warfare. They fought with unpredictability, with imagination, with something no machine could calculate: desperation forged into brilliance. In Earth's war rooms, maps glowed with shifting red lines. The leaders knew they were still outnumbered, still outgunned. Yet they pressed forward, because survival did not come from balance. It came from daring. One general said it plainly: "We cannot match their fleets, so we must break their spirit." And break it they did. On a cold frontier world, humans launched a surprise strike on a shipyard thought to be untouchable. The battle lasted 2 days. When it ended, the sky above the planet was filled with burning hulks, the Empire's once proud. Warships broken and falling like meteors. The shipyard that had built countless vessels for centuries was gone, turned to ash. Word of the destruction raced across the stars. On neutral stations, crowds whispered in disbelief. The humans burned it, but no one has ever dared. Traders who had once avoided human ports now sought them eagerly, hoping to profit from the rising power. For the first time, humanity was not seen as prey, but as a force to be reckoned with. The alien council grew desperate. They unleashed terror weapons devices banned for centuries. Planets were threatened with annihilation. Populations warned of extinction if they aided. Humans. The message was clear: bend or be broken. But the threats only steeled humanity further. When a small colony world was struck by one of these forbidden weapons, turning cities into glass, the humans did not retreat. They did not plead for mercy. Instead, they swore vengeance. Entire fleets were dedicated to hunting the weapon carriers, tearing them apart piece by piece. No Empire ship carrying such horrors survived. In the midst of war, humanity began to change. Their unity grew unshakable. Petty rivalries between nations vanished as resources were poured into the war effort. Factories on Earth thundered without pause, producing weapons faster than ever. Scientists unveiled breakthroughs born of desperation: shields that held longer, engines that burned hotter, weapons that struck harder. Every human carried the war within them. Farmers donated harvests to feed soldiers. Miners dug deeper to fuel the fleets. Families sent sons and daughters to the front lines. Even those who could not fight sent messages of strength, reminding every soldier why they fought: not for conquest, Not for glory, but for survival, for dignity, for the right to stand unbroken in the face of tyranny. And across the galaxy, others began to watch with more than fear. Small races, once crushed by the Empire's iron fist, whispered of rebellion. They had lived in shadows for centuries, too weak to resist. But when they saw fragile humanity rise against impossible odds, something stirred in their hearts. If humans could fight, why couldn't they? The Empire sensed the shift. Their rulers screamed in fury, ordering fleets to tighten control, crushing any hint of uprising. But it was already too late. The spark had been lit. Humanity's war was no longer just their own. It had become a signal, a fire across the stars. Council that once mocked humans now realized a darker truth. If Earth could endure long enough, the galaxy itself might rise behind them. And that thought filled them with something they had never felt before. Fear. The Empire strikes back. Empire had been wounded, but not broken. For all the raids, for all the shipyards burned and fleets shattered, its heart still pulsed with power. And now, enraged by the rising defiance, the rulers unleashed their full might. From the core worlds, a storm of steel and fire poured forth. The largest armada assembled in centuries darkened the stars. Thousands of warships, bristling with weapons, surged toward human space like a tidal wave. Their commanders swore the same oath. No human world would survive. When the news reached Earth, silence filled the war chambers. The scale of the coming assault dwarfed anything humanity had ever faced. Charts showed the armada stretching across half a system, more ships than the human fleet could even dream of. Some officers whispered of hopelessness. Others clenched, their fists, their jaws set. The admirals did not ask if they could win. They asked how much they could make the enemy pay. Every human world prepared. Colonies dug bunkers deep into rock. Defense grids powered up, bristling with new weapons. Civilians volunteered to help crews load torpedoes and missiles. Children were sent underground, their parents whispering promises that they would see the stars again. Humanity braced for the storm. And then it came. The Empire's fleets descended upon the border worlds with merciless fury. Entire skies lit up with the fire of battle. Human defenses fought valiantly, tearing down ship after ship, but the numbers were overwhelming. Cities burned, seas boiled. Ash fell from skies turned black. On one world, defenders stood to the last, fighting from streets and rooftops as orbital fire rained down. Their final transmissions were not cries for help, but messages of defiance. Tell Earth we fought. Tell them we did not kneel. The Empire believed this would break humanity. They broadcast images of destruction across the galaxy, expecting Earth to collapse under grief. But instead, those images hardened human resolve. Where others saw despair, humans saw martyrs. Every burned city became a rallying cry. Every lost world became fuel for vengeance. And vengeance came swiftly. Human fleets struck back, not with overwhelming numbers, but with cunning. They set ambushes in asteroid belts, where enemy dreadnoughts lumbered helplessly as nimble destroyers. Tore them apart. They mined hyperspace lanes, forcing fleets into deadly traps. They launched false retreats, luring arrogant admirals into kill zones where hidden carriers unleashed storms of fighters. Each battle cost humans dearly, but it cost the Empire more. For the first time in living memory, their fleets bled faster than they could be replaced. Meanwhile, whispers spread faster than the Empire could silence them. Races long oppressed watched as humans refused to bow. Slaves on distant worlds smuggled weapons, rebellions sparking in the shadows. Small fleets, ragged and weak, began striking Empire patrols, inspired by human defiance. The Empire tried to crush these sparks, but the more they stamped, the more fire spread. And at the heart of it all stood humanity, battered but unbroken. One night, in a broadcast carried across neutral space, a human officer spoke. His uniform was torn, his face scarred, his voice rough. Yet his words cut like blades. You thought we would weep. You thought we would kneel. But every tear you tried to force from us has turned to steel. We are humanity, and we do not surrender. The message went viral across the stars. On worlds hidden in fear, beings lifted their heads. On ships flying under empire banners, whispers of doubt grew among the crews. For the first time in centuries, the empire felt something deeper than anger. It felt the slow, creeping weight of inevitability, because the humans were not fighting alone anymore. The galaxy was beginning to rise. Asterisk, the war that changed the galaxy, the empire's fury, burned hot, but it could not burn forever. For every human, world scorched, 2 more rebels rose in the shadows. For every fleet the empire sent to crush Earth, wreckage floated back into the void. What began as one species' desperate struggle had grown into a firestorm consuming the stars. Humanity was no longer alone. On distant worlds, enslaved races tore off their chains and took up arms. Old enemies of the empire, beaten, scattered, nearly forgotten, emerged from hiding to strike again. At first, their fleets were ragged, their weapons outdated, but they fought with a ferocity born of centuries of oppression. And humanity welcomed them, sharing tactics, weapons, and hope. The galaxy had never seen such unity. The empire's rulers raged in their palaces, issuing decree after decree, sending wave after wave of fleets. But the tide was turning. The war that should have been a swift victory had become a grinding nightmare. Their admirals grew desperate, their people restless. The whispers of rebellion reached even their core worlds. And then came the Empire's last gamble. They gathered their remaining strength into one colossal fleet, an armada larger than anything seen in millennia. Its purpose was simple: strike directly at Earth, burn it to ash, and break humanity's spirit once and for all. The galaxy held its breath. The armada appeared at the edge of the Sol system. The stars themselves seemed to darken. Thousands of ships, lined in endless rows, advanced with unstoppable force. On Earth, alarms blared. Families huddled in shelters. Fleets scrambled to form defensive lines. Every soldier knew this was it, the battle that would decide their future. First clash was cataclysmic. Human ships fought desperately, unleashing every weapon, every trick they had learned. Asteroids were turned into mines. Moons became fortresses. Even orbital stations were armed to fire like warships. The void lit with fire brighter than suns. Asterisk, the Empire's fleet tore through them, its sheer size overwhelming. Human lines bent, broke, ships burning and falling into planets below. For a moment, it seemed the end had come. And then, the galaxy arrived. From hyperspace. Fleets poured in, not just human, but ships from a dozen species once enslaved. Their banners were ragged, their hulls scarred, but their guns blazed with fury. They struck the Empire's flanks, their voices shouting through coms. For freedom, for humanity. The battle became chaos. Human destroyers and rebel frigates darted between massive dreadnoughts, tearing them apart piece by piece. Carriers unleashed swarms of fighters, overwhelming defenses. Old slave ships, repurposed for war, rammed into Empire cruisers, sacrificing themselves for victory. In the heart of the chaos, the human flagship surged forward. Its guns thundered, its hull scarred but unbroken. At its command, the admiral gave the order that would echo for centuries: no retreat. Today, we end this. The fight raged for hours, then days. Entire fleets were lost. Worlds trembled under the firepower unleashed. But slowly, painfully, the tide shifted. One by one, the Empire's dreadnoughts fell. Their command ships burned. Their formations crumbled. At last, the flagship of the Empire's supreme commander was surrounded. Human ships and rebel allies closed in. Overcomes, a final message was sent. This galaxy will never kneel again. And then, with a storm of fire, the flagship was torn apart, exploding in a blaze brighter than dawn. Silence fell across the battlefield. The Empire's armada was gone, shattered, broken, defeated. On Earth, cheers erupted. Across rebel worlds, chains were cast aside, banners raised high. The galaxy had changed forever. For the first time in living memory, the Empire was no more. And at the center of it all stood humanity, not conquerors, not overlords, but survivors who had refused to weep. They had answered with war, and in doing so, they had given the galaxy something greater than vengeance. They had given it freedom. Asterisk.